Even the Ganga is facing drought-like conditions. How are you assessing what's happening in India right now, the monsoon deficit?
Actually, the deficit is quite large, and some 60% of districts have deficient rainfall so far. The first week of July gave us hope that perhaps monsoon may revive, but after the first 10 days of July, it has been very dry. It has been very dry after the first 10 days of July. So the worrying aspect is that the poorer states of India like Bihar, Vidarbha in Maharashtra, the poorer regions have received very low rainfall. Bihar is about 45% deficient, and some parts of Maharashtra which are drought prone are about 40% deficient. So on the whole, the situation is not very good at this point of time.
India finds itself in this situation over and over again through the years. I'm just wondering how much is really meteorological, how much is policy-driven vulnerability?
Actually, the area under irrigation has increased by about 10% over the last 12, 13 years. So in 2015-16, when I was Secretary Agriculture, the area under irrigation was about 45% of gross cultivated area. Now it is touching 55%. Similarly, micro irrigation coverage has also improved. But overall, large parts of India continue to depend on rainfall. And it is not only the dry regions, even in the irrigated areas like northwest region of India, Punjab, Haryana, UP, there also we need monsoon rains so that the underground water is, the draw from the underground water is lower. Otherwise, recharging becomes even more worrisome.
Siraj, people point to chronic underinvestment in watershed management. What do you say to that?
No, we can always demand more money, but what has happened over the years is that large irrigation projects have dragged on for years, especially in Maharashtra and some other regions of India. And vast sums of money have been invested by the government, but they did not yield the result which was expected. And therefore, in 2014, when the new Modi government was sworn in, it was decided that we will select 99 projects and complete them faster. And I think the progress there has been quite good. The government has paid a lot of attention, but I agree that in several parts of India, micro irrigation could substantially improve. And there is a need to invest more in micro irrigation and in other aspects. But having said this, we can always ask for more money, but there are competing demands for that.
Siraj, what are you looking at right now in terms of the data points over the next few weeks to feel a little less concerned, both in terms of the collateral impact of this rainfall, but most importantly within that, the impact on food production?
I think overall the production of food grains will not be very much lower because in 2015-16, it was second consecutive year of drought and still the food grain production was lower by only about 5%. So I do not see much worry on account of that. But I think the production of maize is going to be lower. The production of cotton may be lower. And especially pulses and oilseeds production may be lower, which may have to import more pulses, perhaps at lower duty. And therefore, there will be impact on food inflation. We cannot say that we are completely shielded from that.
Any sense of how large that impact will be, Siraj? And the reason I ask is because we went into this monsoon with a more than adequate food buffer stock from the data I've looked at. Now, that might largely be rice, wheat, but nonetheless, where do you see the price impact turning out to be the worst?
Actually, a lot depends on how the rainfall is distributed from now till the end of August. But I think we will see inflation in pulses, we will see inflation in oilseeds, as I said, and therefore food inflation may cross 6-7%, consumer food inflation. Wheat and rice, of course, we are very comfortable. But, an odd thing here is that the government has allocated 7.2 million tons of rice for ethanol. So I think that needs a relook, especially in view of lower area coverage for maize in both Maharashtra and Karnataka, which are major Kharif maize producing states.
Okay. I do also want to ask you, as former Agriculture Secretary, you would have witnessed the impact of what a deficient monsoon means for rural incomes. That's another metric we're trying to get a sense of. I understand the impact has changed over the last decade and rural incomes are more buoyant and less monsoon dependent. Yet, what's your take on that?
No, rural incomes will be affected, and as I mentioned, the poorer states of East India like Bihar, Jharkhand, etc., and the poorer regions of West India like Vidarbha, Telangana have received very low rainfall. So it is not only agriculture which suffers under these circumstances. The fodder availability becomes a problem. Drinking water becomes a problem because even the reservoir levels are very low. I was looking at the data and I find that in UP, it is just about 22% reservoir level. And in West Bengal, just about 19%. Telangana also very low levels. So rural economy will be affected and rural incomes will definitely be affected, especially small farmers and agricultural laborers. So a lot will depend on whether G Ramji, the new scheme, which has been introduced in place of Mahatma Gandhi Narega, this employment generation scheme, how does it fare? Because in the new dispensation, the state governments have to contribute 40% of the total expenditure on rural employment. Earlier, on employment, their contribution was zero. So I do not know how keen will be the states in providing employment to rural people under the employment guarantee scheme.
Siraj, do you see crop support prices going up significantly? What's the sense you're getting?
No, I do not think that the Commission for Agriculture Cost and Prices will recommend higher prices. In any case, the prices for Kharif crops, that is the crop which is now being sown, have already been declared. What has happened in the past is that if there is lower production due to drought or any other reason, then the government, even the central government, has declared bonus from time to time in some years. So depending on how monsoon behaves and what is the extent of production loss, it is possible that the government may declare a bonus, but I do not see any increase in the minimum support price. Of course, if monsoon continues to be very deficient, then even the winter crop will be affected. So it is possible that the government may take that into consideration and provide a small hike for the Rabi crops, for winter crops. But, these price hikes have remained in the range of 3 to 6%. So I do not see a very high level of increase in that. From 6%, it cannot go up to 10%. That is what I mean.
In any case, I'm also wondering if the crop insurance schemes are actually enough and effective if farmers get impacted.
Crop insurance schemes are quite effective if they are conducted in a manner which is desirable and which is provided for in the regulations. So, for example, once it is known that you are going to have El Nino, and if you force the insurance companies to provide insurance after that declaration, then obviously insurance companies would be very reluctant. The basic point of insurance is the uncertainty. Therefore, there are cutoff dates in the regulations, but many a times those dates are not honored by the state governments, and there is a push from the state governments and even the central government to force the insurance companies to provide insurance even after the cutoff date. So now that it is known that we are going to be deficient in rains, there is no point in extending the date now. So on the whole, I think those who have taken insurance before the cutoff date will be well shielded, but those who have taken insurance after the cutoff date on the recommendation of the state government, I do not think insurance companies will be very keen to support them.
Siraj, I'm going to move away from the direct impact of the monsoon to ask you two policy questions. One is the ethanol debate that's going on in the country, and this is in terms of mixing ethanol with petrol to be able to reduce our import bill, but unfortunately it does increase our water bill. I'm curious how you look at the rising proportion of ethanol in fuel in this country and what that really means for water consumption and the broad impact on agriculture.
You see, I have written on this subject several pieces, including long articles. See, what has happened is that 20% blending was a good policy choice, which was recommended by Niti Aayog. Now, it would not be very correct to say that because of this policy, water consumption is going up, because the farmers would have grown sugarcane anyway. Whether ethanol blending was 10% or 20%, that would not affect area under sugarcane. What has happened is that the government has provided rice from the government stocks. 7.2 million tons this year. That is a wrong choice. Again, it does not mean that farmers are growing paddy or rice to supply ethanol. What has happened is that several state governments are providing bonus on paddy. They are incentivizing rice. So it is coming from there, due to which the government has built up huge stock of rice. But lastly, it is maize whose cultivation has been encouraged by the government. And in my view, instead of maize, the farmers should be encouraged to grow pulses and oilseeds, because in a country like India, whose population is going to increase to 1.67 billion by 2050, we should be taking care of our food security first. So in my view, to sum it up, we should not be going beyond 20% blending at this point of time.
Okay, one final quick short question, Siraj, and that is that, every time we run into a monsoon crisis, we're reminded of the unfinished farm reform agenda. Anything top of your list this year that you hope the government will get to?
I do not think that there is political space available with the government to go for serious reforms. This fertilizer crisis provided an opportunity to the government to gradually increase the urea prices, as was done by the UPA government for diesel prices. At one point of time, diesel was very high. So then the UPA government increased the price of diesel by 50 paisa per month. Every month, the price went up by 50 paisa. Some kind of modification in the urea policy I was expecting, but that did not happen. So elections are due in several large states in 2027. So I do not think that we will see any serious reforms in agriculture policy.
Siraj, I want to pick up on the fertilizer crisis that you just mentioned. Just how bad is it as a result of the Iran war?
No, it is not very bad. In fact, it was handled very well by our government. What has happened is that the government bought urea at the peak of the crisis, Hormuz closure, at a very high price, $50 per ton, while before the war it was between $450 to $500 per ton. So the government shielded the farmers by importing urea at a very high price. Though in some states there are kind of restrictions on how much urea a farmer can buy, but there has not been any large-scale disruption in supply of fertilizers. Of course, the government's budget for fertilizer subsidy is going to be higher as compared to the estimate provided when the budget was presented.
Do you see any risks if the Iran war were to persist? I mean, it's gone far longer than most people expected already.
Of course, there is, every possibility that if the movement of ships is impacted, then availability and import for Rabi crop, for the winter crop, may be affected. But in the meantime, Indian government has done very well to explore options from other countries, import of urea and other fertilizers from other countries. So I do not think that we are going to have any serious crisis of fertilizers even in Rabi crop. In any case, we are now better prepared after this crisis to handle situations like this.